Hello, everybody. We are beginning with Esoteric Astrology Adventure number 57. We are approximately on page 129 of the book Esoteric Astrology. We are working with the sign Pisces, quite an elaborate description. We're just about at 129, just about there. So we have been discussing preparation for the 12 great tests in 12 signs, and that preparation occurring upon the Mutable Cross and upon the Fixed Cross as well. Now we move on. That Pisces governs the feet. Every sign of the zodiac, as we know, governs one of the parts of the body. Aries, the head, Taurus, the throat, Gemini, the lungs and the hands, Cancer, the stomach and the breasts, Leo, the heart and the back, Virgo, the small intestines, Libra, the kidneys, Scorpio, the generative organs, Sagittarius, the thighs, and musculature in general, Capricorn, the knees, and to an extent the skin, Aquarius, the calves and the circulatory system, Pisces, the feet and the lymphatic system, and that, of course, can be elaborated. Let's see, I don't want this to be too loud. That's about right. So Pisces governs the feet, and hence the whole thought of progress. Go forth and do matter. The very first sign in which the first individual incarnation is taken. The whole thought of progress, of attaining the goal. Jupiter confers vision in Pisces, and the treading of the path of return. When the prodigal son awakens to himself, the treading of the path of return has been the underlying spiritual revelation of the great cycle through which we are passing. Humanity is no longer on a strictly involutionary path. Humanity is about to become the world disciple, and in a sense is certainly already the world aspirant. And the more advanced members of humanity certainly are awakening to their spiritual potentials, and the fact that the potential spiritual revelation has been obscured by the five senses, and in general by that which is not to be considered a principle, at least on our planet and in this solar system. Pisces governs the feet, and hence the whole thought of progress. Jupiter is always progressive, Jupiter the main ruler, going from one ring past knot, pushing it to the next, and always a wider and wider horizon from the perspective of Jupiter. Attaining the goal and the treading of the path of return, the prodigal son awakens and realizes he is in a far country and in a very disadvantaged position, and begins to tread the path of return, not only back to the soul which has sent him forth, but ultimately to the monad which he is, and from which he journeyed as the jiva, or the divine pilgrim, on the great pilgrimage through 5 different planes, down and up, symbolically. And the treading of the path of return has been the underlying spiritual revelation of the great cycle through which we are passing. The DK is not specific about that particular cycle, but it does suggest that humanity, in a sense, is reversing the wheel. Let's say humanity is reversing the wheel, and this certainly must be the case since humanity is about to take the first initiation. Of course, naturally, not all of humanity. DK is very realistic about the figures there, but somehow sufficient of humanity to reorient the race and to provide a type of leaven, a type of rising of the consciousness. So humanity as a whole can be considered the world disciple and the candidate for the first initiation. It is right now the candidate for the first initiation, and when the Christ reappears, we are told that that will be the indication that humanity has taken the first initiation. Okay, also, in the Piscean Age, the lesser cycle out of which we are at this time moving, a cycle of some 2160 years, or sometimes with overlaps of previous and following ages, considered to be 2500 years. Also in the Piscean Age, the lesser cycle, see, because the greater cycle is much bigger, 25,000 years approximately, or 25,920 if we want to be more exact. The lesser cycle out of which we are at this time moving, it has been the origin of all the teaching given by the world religions anent the various stages of the path of return. It's really quite amazing how the symbolism associated with the different constellations and signs of the zodiac manages to work itself into the thought process of the human race and the literature, spiritual or otherwise, which that race produces during that particular time. So Pisces has been behind the symbolism of the path, and so many of us are affected by this path symbolism, and we take very seriously the type of path we are treading, always having to remember, however, that we really are the path. We have descended as a stream of energy, we return as a stream of energy. A path is a stream of energy along which a unit of conscious life travels. Some astrologers also hold that Pisces governs the generative process, thereby, I suppose, associated with the sacral center. But DK puts a different slant on this. They are essentially correct because once a man is nearing the path, the true path beginning at the first initiation, but there being a probationary or an aspirational path before that, the true path, however, being the path of discipleship, essentially beginning at the first initiation. They are essentially correct because once a man is nearing or upon the path, he should become increasingly creative in the higher sense. And the physical generative processes should give place esoterically to regeneration. We have Jupiter as the rulership here. Jupiter, in its lower aspect, is connected in the secret doctrine with the worship of the ancestral gods and the propitiating of the gods of form. The whole idea of be fruitful and multiply through the generative process is a Jupiterian type of phenomenon, apparently here associated with Pisces, as one is only sensitive to impression from the lower worlds. So, but DK is talking about a different type of generation, rather regeneration, and Pisces is particularly connected with regeneration, and to creation upon the mental plane instead of only upon the physical plane. So basically we have a transference here from the sacral center to the throat center, and when you become a regenerated human being, my old teacher used to say to me, he says, there must come a time when a man ceases to reproduce his own kind and begins reproducing himself. So this is the transference from generation to regeneration. And I suppose we could say that Pisces, with his Pluto rulership, cuts the tendency to regenerate through the, or generate through the sacral center, and lifts the energy in a kundalinic fashion, so the throat center is stimulated as if from Pluto to Saturn, ruling the throat center, and the creative life begins to take place. And that creative life, creates forms which can be infused by the soul and used to lift the consciousness and the consciousness of others. So I guess let us emphasize that word, regeneration. And interestingly enough, it is a word that has been associated with Pluto, and Pluto as the planet of regeneration or rebirth. So Pluto as regeneration or rebirth. Pluto is also associated with Scorpio, Scorpio with sex, sex with generation in general. But Pluto is the remaking, the death of the old and the birth of the new, and it is a spiritual ruler of Pisces. So we can see the connection of Pisces then to regeneration, to the extrication of the consciousness from form and lower forms, and to engagement with higher forms which can carry the soul light, and for the creation of forms which embody that. We do find Pisces as very imaginative people. Let's put that down. Pisces as imaginative, and imagination used to create forms which can carry soul energy. So we start to build a new world with the Piscean imagination connected to Neptune, and we divorce ourselves from the old world. So we generate the higher man in Christ. Higher man in Christ through Neptune, which is Vishnu, Christ, and the imagination. And to creation upon the mental plane, that's via the throat center instead of only upon the physical plane. So we move from the Earth rulership of the throat center to the Saturnian rulership, and eventually to Uranian rulership of the throat center, which is interesting because Uranus is one of those planets that transmits from Sirius through Pisces the energy of the second ray, strangely. So we have Sirius, Pisces, Uranus, and there's the whole idea of creating the new forms of a higher nature under the Sirian impulse and under the imaginative impulse of Pisces. This higher creative functioning becomes possible under the influence of aspiration and intuition. So there we have kind of a Jupiterian factors, and also that which is related to the sixth and second rays, which are the two rays which pour through Pisces. Sixth ray, the ray of aspiration; second ray, especially the ray of intuition, though not to leave out any of the rays as possibly intuitive, but especially the 2-4-6 line. So this higher creative functioning becomes possible under the influence of aspiration and intuition. As we're told in Sagittarius, we shoot the arrow of aspiration, and it returns as an intuition. This is the aspiring aspect of Jupiter, which has made me at times think, and some other astrologers too, that at some level in the Jupiterian expression, probably a relatively low level, there is an important sixth ray. The sixth ray relating to the sixth plane from below which Jupiter rules, that is the monadic plane. Okay, so a higher creative functioning, the imagination is seeded by the intuition, and the imagination begins to take on the form of that which is archetypal. It doesn't always do that, as we realize. The the imagination takes on archetypal forms, and oftentimes it simply follows the forms of desire, so that true art can begin when the imagination turns archetypal, as it will, increasingly under the impending fourth ray age, beginning approximately in 2025, and actually having some sort of beginning at the end of 1924, the Tibetan tells us. So this this higher creative functioning, aspiration and intuition, begins to take place when the four esoteric rulers supplement the activity of the two orthodox rulers. It's very interesting because now we have a kind of sequence here. We have two orthodox rulers of Pisces giving way to the four esoteric rulers of Pisces, giving way to the four esoteric rulers of the fixed cross. So, you know, at different points in our life, in this journey on the path, on that stream of energy which is magnetically oriented towards our point of origin, the path of outgo, the path of incoming and return, on this path we pass through various influences of various energies, and it's important to know at what stage of the path we may be operating and the kinds of influences that we may be subjected to. You know, probably we live our life and we have a routine and various things happen, but how sensitive are we to the changing of energies around us and within us? And do we know when a new energy is coming in? Do we know when something comes over us, when something inspires us or in some way subdues us? Energy sensitivity is one of the great necessities for the esoteric astrologer, for the rheologist, and also, of course, for the psychologist. It is interesting to note that the astrologer Alan Leo, who had a lot of Virgo, by the way, but quite a bit of Leo in his chart too. It's a taken name, of course. It is interesting to note that the astrologer Alan Leo suggests Neptune as an alternative to Jupiter. That doesn't mean that Jupiter is not to be considered, because definitely it is one of the rulers, and DK explains the whole rulership in relation to the Jonah idea and to the binding of the fishes. Neptune as an alternative to Jupiter. He sensed and touched upon a mystery of initiation. What level we're not told, though he does not realize the magnitude of his discovery. Well, there are many people, you know, that are Neptunian Pisceans. There are many Neptunian. I better capitalize that. There are many Neptunian Pisceans, but not exclusively. You know, there are all those rulers mix in, and people are much affected by Neptune when in this sign, but that does not negate the impression of Jupiter upon the average individual in Pisces, or the impression of Pluto upon the advancing individual. But Neptune is a pervasive planet. Neptune is pervasive. It does not respect boundaries. It is boundaryless. It managed to seep through apparently dense, hard boundaries as if they were somewhat porous or permeable. So Neptune focuses the influence of Pisces as it concerns humanity as a whole and not just the individual man. So in a period in which Pisces is affecting not just the individual, which it of course also does, but affecting humanity as a whole, Neptune will be extremely strong. So let's just see and let's think, what has been the role of Neptune during the past 2,000 years? It has been formidable. It's been an age of great religious pursuit. It's been an age in which the Occidental mystics have appeared. Maybe mystics of all types have had their particular type of quest intensified during the last 2,000 years. So Pisces has definitely been the ruler of humanity, and in many ways the ruler of the planet for the last 2,000 or so years, a bit more. And Neptune, therefore, has been in focus. So we start to look at group astrology and not just individual astrology. Okay, but this only takes place towards the final stages of the path of discipleship. So the higher type of Neptunian influence, when humanity becomes itself a type of disciple, will be very noticeable, and humanity will not be held by the normal boundaries of consciousness, but will be able to slip out and slip through. And the suggestion here is that as a person becomes a higher type of disciple, later in the stages, let's say the second initiation, Neptune becomes very strong. Well, even at the first degree, Neptune as Christ, as Vishnu, is becoming a factor to be considered. But later there is this slipping away and relinquishment of all that has to do with the lower subplanes and the usual prison of humanity, and the moon, in a way, ruling the lower worlds, gives place to Neptune, and the man is free and he can refocus upon the buddhic plane. So the buddhic plane is ruled by Neptune in part, also with Jupiter and Mercury, and man refocuses at the fourth degree upon the buddhic plane. So see, DK is certainly not denying the influence of Neptune in the Piscean individual, but he's saying it has a strong relationship to a larger group. And he's also saying that the influence of the signs can affect different spheres of identity within the divine life. It can affect the individual, the smaller group. It can also affect humanity as a whole. It can affect the planet. And perhaps different rulerships can be found when the different signs relate to wholes of different sizes. Well, that's a speculative thought, but it seems to be borne out here. The final stages on the path of discipleship, let's say third degree, fourth degree, is when we're particularly speaking of this, because at that time, after the third degree, humanity, of the human being, as disciple, and even as initiate, begins to coordinate the buddhic vehicle. The coordination of the buddhic vehicle. Sometimes it seems that it's happening around the second degree, but more actually the man becomes intuitive after the third degree. Today, humanity is moving rapidly towards the position of the world disciple. Not quite there yet. Sometimes DK even does refer to humanity as the world disciple, and intuiting this, he suggests Neptune as the alternative to Jupiter. So great discoveries, and of course when the discovery is known for what it is, it's even better, but it's a good thing that it did happen. In other words, we seem to be owing to Alan Leo the idea, entertained by so many people when they are Piscean or has some strong Pisces in the chart, that Neptune really has to be considered. So what we have to think of is the various stages of Neptunian humanity. In a lower turn of the spiral, it seems like humanity is much subjected to the drug culture during the 20th century, and drugs as a means of producing illusion and escape have become pervasive. That is a Neptunian factor, and we can say, well, humanity is searching for a higher type of consciousness through these drug experiences, either that or for escape. But there is some motivation, subconscious motivation, to find something higher. And Neptune, which is not a planet with great roots at all, does seem to lift human consciousness into that which is higher. Okay, so Neptune and the group called humanity, ruling in relation to Pisces, the group called humanity, but also capable of being applied to the individual disciple in various ways, low and high, and especially towards the later stages of the path of discipleship. Okay. Esoterically, now we're talking about exaltations here. Esoterically, the reason that Venus is exalted in Pisces is connected with the relation of Pisces to the sign Gemini. We had talked about that earlier, showing there are many similarities here. Venus, the esoteric ruler of Gemini, Venus, the exalted ruler of Pisces, of which Venus is the esoteric ruler, and also in relation to the fact that Venus is the Earth's alter ego and is closely related to the human kingdom. Well, Pisces is the conclusion, and Venus represents the end of the solar angelic project. Let's just say Venus and the climax of the solar angelic project, meaning that the solar angels have helped with the individualization of man. There are other methods of individualizing, but in this, on our planet now, in this solar system, the method of divine intervention for individualization under the sponsorship of Venus is used. And they have intervened and stayed with the developing human being. And finally, when the human being is in a way exalted at the fourth initiation, their task is finished. So we're looking here, Pisces and the fourth initiation, and the conclusion of the task of the solar angels. So the human being is exalted out of the fourth kingdom. Well, let's say he's exalted out of the need to incarnate. So the human being is exalted out of the need to incarnate. And the solar angels can, as it were, go home to the heart of the sun or to the central spiritual sun, either one. So the two brothers are related, soul and personality. It all comes to a climax at the fourth degree, and the fourth degree can easily be taken in relation to Pisces when a great renunciation takes place. Pisces, as we know, is a sign of sacrifice, and in a renunciation, we have discussed that. So the greatest of renunciations in terms of the human family is called the fourth initiation, crucifixion, great renunciation. And Venus, the human being is exalted to a very high level. It has become Venusian in its nature, and therefore the Venusian solar angels can return to later be outbreathed in groups to become planetary logoi. So I've hinted a little bit at the vastness of the subject, but DK tells us the subject is too vast and complicated to be elaborated here, but the point should be remembered. We are all trying to become like Venus. We are Earth trying to become like Venus, and the logos of Earth itself is trying to become more like its, let us say, twin sister, Venus. Venus in a female incarnation and Earth in a male incarnation at this point. And how that varies and alternates, that's all part of the planetary lore. But he tells us we're in a masculine incarnation here on the Earth and Venus in a feminine incarnation. For that, and that implies, of course, that we could here on Earth be in a feminine incarnation and Venus could be in a male incarnation. But for the moment, the feminine power is extremely important in relating us to Venus, and Venus is stimulating the higher part of the feminine power. And the new age in which the soul will move towards its exaltation is very much under the sway of the feminine and Venus, the divine feminine, not necessarily, all the kind of ancient goddess lore that we have, much of which probably was pretty retrogressive in Atlantean times, a time of a great matriarchy. So we have a vast and complicated subject to be elaborated here, but we must remember the point. Okay, the fishes, what is the point? Okay, that the reason for the exaltation of Venus and Pisces is related to the sign Gemini. It's kind of as if that Pisces completes the Geminian project. Pisces completes the Geminian project with respect to man. The elder brother, Pollux, becomes glorious and is exalted over the lower brother, who is shining by reflected light and is also redeemed, and the solar angels have completed their very laborious work involving great abnegation, self-abnegation, and self-sacrifice, which Pisces suggests. So think of it, the great second cosmic decanate ruled by Pisces, and the great second ray which rules that decanate, and Venus with its ultimately second ray monad, exalted in this second ray sign, indicating the conclusion of the redemptive project which has lifted man from the animal state all the way into being a full member of the fifth kingdom of nature, which reflects the fifth grade of hierarchy, which is ruled by Venus. Well, we can see, it's the vast, complicated subject. Just about the whole secret doctrine is dedicated, or a major portion of the secret doctrine is dedicated to this mystery. And DK has assured us over and again that we will not solve the mystery of the solar angel. But we get the hints here and there, and we begin to piece it together, and gradually a broader picture of what it really means to be a redeemed human being, moving towards Venus, moving towards the heart of the sun, moving towards Sirius, begins to dawn on us. The fishes in Pisces are bound together, as we have seen, remember, under Jupiter, and this is a symbol of the captivity of the soul in form. In other words, consciousness simply remains conscious of form and forgets what it itself is. There is no such thing as consciousness of consciousness at this stage, and everything looks objective. So this binding of the fishes is the symbol of the captivity of the soul in form prior to the experience upon the fixed cross, on which cross the soul comes into its own and is released. The soul comes into its own and is released from captivity to form. In other words, our perceptual range greatly expands, and the soul is no longer strictly outgoing, looking only at objects, but begins to realize that it itself is the perceiver. And this is the true reflexive consciousness, where the soul can begin to perceive itself. The twins in Gemini are symbols of the same basic duality, soul and personality, but the experience of the many changing incarnations, let instability do its work in Gemini, it's the sign of great change. The experience of the many changing incarnations has done its work, and the band uniting the two fishes is in process of dissolution. And this is important during a particular stage, so to produce the freer soul. Now, eventually that bondage comes back in under Pisces. It's like a process from bondage in Pisces to the dissolution of the bond during the stage of free determination and full expression of humanhood, and back into a type of bondage in later Pisces where the form is captive to the soul. Okay, so the experience of many changing incarnations has done its work, and the band, which is a constellation related to Pisces, the band uniting the two fishes is in process of dissolution. That's Neptune again, isn't it? Dissolving the band, or Pluto cutting the band later, to produce the freer soul. For part of the work of Pluto is, and here is one of those great mantric phrases, to cut the thread which binds the two opposing lives together. I have a song about that. Not a cheerful song necessarily, but it is a song. And it is about the Lord of Death cutting the bond. And it can do this. If you think about Pluto in relation to Gemini, or Pluto in the third house, the opportunity for cutting the band between the two is strong. Now, hopefully the personality is sufficiently free-willed and properly oriented so that it will not go off on its own in a negative tendency, because it has to, of its own free will, associate itself with the soul. So Pluto is the shears, the sharp shears of sorrow. Death is so often, for so many, a sorrowful experience because it's experience of loss. Pluto is connected with the whole idea of relinquishment and leaving behind that to which one was previously attached, and oftentimes the process is a forced process, forced sacrifice, we can often say. You can think about Pluto in relation to the third petal of the egoic lotus, where so often sacrifices are enforced in a unconscious manner. A person is just put through it and made to give up life and well-being and many of the attachments for something higher, and they don't even know really what it is. Okay, it is the task of Venus to reunite the severed lives, but with no binding thread. So there we seem to see the power to produce relationship between the two, but not compulsion. So there's a voluntary cooperation between the twins. For a long time, the higher of the brothers has cooperated, wanting to help the lower brother, and the lower brother didn't know anything about it. Then the lower brother gets reoriented and is no longer compelled by the soul, but chooses of its own free will and accord. Remember how Gemini has that factor of free choice in it. Chooses of its own free will and accord to abide by the newly sensed direction and communication of the soul. It is the task of Venus to reunite the severed lives, but with no binding thread. Therefore, Venus is exalted in Pisces, because Venus is related to both Gemini and Pisces, has a very high position in Pisces, and there is a uniting of the two. But we can say that the personality is in voluntary bondage to the soul. In other words, the personality has become so oriented to the soul that to do God's will, not my will, but thine be done, in Pisces is its expressed wish and intention. The soul is not compelling. So the personality is in self-chosen bondage to the soul. Look at the bondage that Sanakumara is in relation to our planet. That is certainly self-chosen. So this is a very important idea. Yes, there is bondage two ways. At first, the soul is in bondage to the personality, and the consciousness is very constrained and very preoccupied with non-reality. But later, there is another type of bondage which is based on freedom. And it is the choice of the personality influenced by the soul to bind itself to the soul of its own free will. And thereby, when that act of freedom is well established, then Venus, the solar angels represented by Venus, can return and take on another task, because the domestication and the elevation of the human being have been accomplished. Therefore, Venus is exalted in Pisces at the end of the greater cycle. Now, you know, the greater cycle, what is that? So much blinding is going on with the naming of these cycles, but I would tend to say that one possibility is the end of the solar logoic manifestation. End of the solar logoic manifestation, the end of the solar system. That can be considered certainly a greater cycle, a Maha Manvantara. And all of these planets, which represent chakras within the solar logos' field of expression, will have a particular kind of position and function at the end of the Maha Manvantaric cycle. Right now, particular planets may be occupying the place of various chakras and have certain functions, and those functions can change. Just the way, you know, the Christ is in office. Lord Maitreya is in that office now, but his function can change as he moves into a new office, and Master Kurumi can take over his function. And so let's just say that Christ represents a certain chakra with respect to humanity. When his task of world saviorship is completed after 5,000 years, another 2,500 years or so, then Master Kuhumi will move into that function and represent that chakra function. So there is mutability among the actual entities with respect to their chakric function. I have said, okay, well, Jupiter is presently, I think, a very strong heart center with respect to the solar logos, but perhaps Venus will move into that position from its present possibly solar plexus chakric expression. And maybe Jupiter will move up towards the heart of the sun and so forth. So entities change function, and chakras are functions. Okay, it is the task of Venus to reunite severed lives, but with no binding thread. By the time we get into Pisces, the severed lives are indeed reunited, and the personality is captive to the soul, but it's a voluntary captivity. And that is so very important. I'm going to put that down. It's a voluntary captivity to the soul or solar angel. The sons of God, who are the sons of mind, are raised up into glory and that can go either way. The solar angels return to the glory of the heart of the sun, of the central spiritual sun, and that which has been man in the lower worlds is raised up into a state of glorification into the spiritual triad through that kind of supernova that occurs with respect to the egoic lotus. The sons of God, who are the sons of mind, are raised up into glory through experience, that's the earth again, and crucifixion, that's Pluto, because they have learned to love and truly reason. Truly reason. Wow, this is buddhic terminology. This is buddhic terminology. And love and true reason, pure reason, has a lot to do with Venus, of course. Venus is a planet which is increasingly buddhic at this time, more so than the Earth, much more so, and is focused on the sixth from the low subplane of the astral plane, which is buddhic. So we are given a love and pure reason by the solar angels. They certainly have, being lords of Manus from before, they certainly have this pure reason, this buddhic quality, and they have the great faculty of love. They have a kind of a second ray and fifth ray combination, or even you might call it a second ray, fourth ray, and fifth ray combination. So we will be glorified at the fourth initiation, and the returning solar angels will be glorified within the solar logos, assuming a new function which will lead them in groups to become planetary loci. The influence of Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo is eventually fused and blended. Well, in Pisces, exaltation of Venus, and Gemini, esoteric rulership, and Virgo, the fall of the solar angels down into matter for redemptive purposes. And interesting, now, these are the three second ray signs, aren't they? The three second ray signs. You know, three signs each, or constellations, convey a particular ray, and these are the ones conveying the second ray. The influence of Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo is eventually fused and blended. Symbolically, the cross must always become the line, and the line, interestingly, is Sagittarius, and then the point. You know, Sagittarius is very much about a line directed towards a point. So the three of these, the material condition in Virgo, and matter is reigning, let matter reign, the discovery of the pairs of opposites in Gemini, and the redemption of the lower of the pairs of opposites through the Piscean influence, all of this is consummated. This is the whole story of man going into matter as a human being and rising out of matter in the exaltation of Venus and Pisces as a full member of the kingdom of God, the fifth kingdom. So the influence of Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo is eventually fused and blended. Symbolically, the cross must always become the line and then the point. Well, one wonders about the mode of becoming the line, but one can certainly see that everything comes inward to the point. Perhaps one axis, perhaps the two axes of the cross have to somehow merge, and then the poles of the merged axes must come in toward the point. Well, anyway, the cross, in my view as well, becomes the pyramid. You know, if you look at a cross and you raise that central point into another dimension, then you have, in fact, the pyramid. The influence of Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo is eventually fused and blended. Symbolically, the cross must always become the line and then the point. Sagittarius, which is governed esoterically by Mother Earth, and remember, governing means a bit like a reducing valve. You know, not all of Sagittarius can get through any planet or through Mother Earth. So it governs the degree to which the constellational energy can flow. A ruler or governor governs or rules the extent or degree to which full constellational energy can flow. That's governor. Governor. A ruler or a governor, is that correct? Governs or rules the extent to which a full constellational energy can flow. So Sagittarius, which governed esoteric, which is governed esoterically by Mother Earth, produces those conditions. These are conditions on Earth whereby the path itself which is the man. The man is the path. And the energy stream which leads to higher dimensions, the path itself achieves glorification. You can sort of witness or understand a path becoming ever brighter and more radiant and rising into the higher dimensions. The path itself achieves glorification. So it's there is a radiance which is conferred upon the path, of the path becoming radiant, and as the individual or group treads that path, they become identified with the light at the end of the path. Consequently, you have at the end of the age, and I here refer to a greater round of the zodiac and no shorter cycle. Round of the zodiac. Does that mean, in a way, one complete revolution of the zodiac? Some have thought that the zodiac does revolve. Does this mean one complete revolution of the zodiac? It certainly is not anything like a Platonic age, as long as that age may last. It's not anything like 25,000 to 26,000 years. The greater round of the zodiac, and to no shorter cycle, the glorification of Venus, of Virgo, the Virgin, and of Mother Earth. Virgo the Virgin and Mother Earth, 2 planets and 1 constellation, and all these are potencies which produce definite changes in the solar system. So a greater round of the zodiac is probably still intrasystemic. A greater round of the zodiac is probably still within the manifestation of our solar system. So, how long really does that require? When we have our solar system and associated solar systems revolving around the Pleiades, they have to pass necessarily through each of the signs of the zodiac. It takes 250,000 years, but I don't think even that is long enough for what decay means by the greater round of the zodiac. It seems to be a climactic point within the solar system itself. Consequently, you have at the end of the age, I refer here to a greater round of the zodiac. Maybe it's not just one, there's more than one, because the article A is used. I refer here to a greater round of the zodiac, and to no shorter cycle. The glorification of Venus in solar systemic terms. Of Virgo the Virgin, because the matter within the solar system will be redeemed and spiritualized, and of Mother Earth, which will have become a sacred planet. Now, when Mother Earth is glorified, has it achieved its, third or maybe fourth cosmic initiation, so that it can truly function as a kundalinic factor in our solar system? Anyway, certainly it is a stage of sacredness for Mother Earth and maybe beyond. The glorification of Venus, Venus is almost at the point where it is to be released. Venus may be undergoing ahead of it, may, like other sacred planets, may lie the second cosmic initiation, but others are coming. So very high states for Venus and the Earth, though Venus ahead of Earth. And Virgo will represent not the matter in all the cosmos, but the matter in the solar system itself. We might call it the assumption of the Virgin, or the etherealization of matter from the previous solar system, which is now in our solar system, the etherealization and upliftment of that matter, so we have a much more etheric solar system. And all of this will happen at some point within our solar systemic cycle, and we call it the end of a greater round of the zodiac. Obviously there are many things there to be discerned, and decay is just hinting, and we cannot know the length of these cycles or the exact time, but suffice it to say, the stage of sacredness is coming for our Earth, a kind of glorification. Our Earth will probably reach the 4th or 5th cosmic initiation in this solar system. Venus will almost certainly reach the 5th cosmic initiation in this solar system. Just as the solar logos may well do, either the 4th or the 5th, but maybe the 5th. And Virgo, who knows what that great constellation will reach in terms of its initiatory process, but at least with respect to the matter of our solar system, it will be glorified. And since we're in a secondary solar system whose theme is the great radiation of light, the great splendid radiation of light, there will be a glorification of matter in our solar system. They represent, these three, 2 planets and 1 constellation, they represent the 3 divine potencies of matter and of substance. Let's see, plus the force of Sagittarius driving them on to still greater consummation. Well, which 3 are we talking about? Because we have had the discussion of 3 signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces, and we could add to that another sign, or we've just had the discussion of 3 factors, Venus, Virgo, and Earth. They represent the 3 divine potencies of matter and of substance, plus the force of Sagittarius driving them on to a still greater consummation. We see that Sagittarius is a driving one-pointed sign, and it is a fire sign. So do we have Venus, Virgo, and Sagittarius being driven on by, Venus, Virgo, and Mother Earth being driven on by Sagittarius? Probably. There is a wide and interesting field of research to be found in the relation of, and let's see what those relations are. The planet Venus, ruler of the constellation Gemini esoterically, the Earth on which we live, called often Mother Earth, interestingly in a masculine incarnation, but probably called because of its third ray fecundity, in its personality ray at least, Mother Earth, the fish goddesses of the sign Pisces, which have spawned the descent of the monads or souls, and Virgo the Virgin. Okay, he indicates how we may enter into this wide field of speculation involving involving 2 planets and 2 signs of the zodiac. We are moving from Virgo towards Pisces, towards the consummation of matter and its spiritual elevation. So just as, in a way, Virgo moves towards Pisces, or matter moves towards its release into a higher dimension, so Mother Earth, with its great plethora of forms, moves towards Venus and towards Gemini. So it moves toward becoming like its elder sister or elder brother, and we'll put Venus in that role. So certainly Pisces is the sign of great consummation, and each one of the signs of the zodiac has a different stage of evolution. We cannot think of them all as equally unfolded, just as we cannot think of stars as equally unfolded, or of planets as equally unfolded, or of human beings as equally unfolded. So some play a dominating role in relation to others, and Pisces, as a cosmic decanate and a sign of great consummation, is certainly playing one of the final roles in relation to the signs of the zodiac, constellations of the zodiac, and in relation to our solar system. All right, there are many factors there which we can begin to pursue. So we've had here in the previous paragraph 3 constellations becoming as one, and in a way driven on by Sagittarius, in a way. And we've also had here what looks like 2 planets and 1 constellation, Venus, Earth, and Virgo, as well, possibly driven on by Sagittarius, which is a very purposeful energy, always with the goal in sight, and involved in this case in that driving forward through space, which is characteristic of the first ray. All right, there are many mysteries there. I'd love to be able to ponder on that for a long time, but then he does indicate that that's exactly what we should be able to do. We are speaking of consummations. Pisces is the sign of consummation. We are speaking of ultimate states and the driving towards ultimate states. Let's say that Sagittarius is the driving influence, and Pisces represents the ultimate state. With respect to Earth, Venus represents at least a semi-ultimate state, or that which we are attempting to become. The fish goddesses we reviewed earlier, they are releasing the individual souls. Perhaps they are even, in a way, releasing the monads as they go forth into the sea of the 5 lower subplanes. Gemini and Sagittarius are connected through their ruling planets because the Earth is more closely related to Venus than to any other planet. Right? There are planetary pairs, we know. Probably Mars and Pluto are such. Maybe Jupiter and Saturn are such. Maybe Uranus and Neptune are such. And the Earth and Venus are certainly closely related. Mercury and the Sun are one, although Mercury has a very close relationship to Venus as well. Gemini and Sagittarius are connected through the ruling planets. Earth, the esoteric ruler of Sagittarius, Earth, the hierarchical ruler of Gemini. Interestingly, this way, Earth, the esoteric ruler of Sagittarius, Venus, the esoteric ruler of Gemini, and the connection between Gemini and Sagittarius through the 2 ruling planets, not just through the fact that Earth is involved with both of them. Perhaps by the time that Earth is hierarchically the ruler of Gemini, it will be a lot more like Venus than it is now. And thus you have the 6 potencies, which produce release from bondage of form, entered into in Cancer as far as the mass of humanity is concerned, and by that I mean the birth of the human kingdom, and in Pisces as far as the individual is concerned. Well, that's what I have been quoting, this particular sentence. In Cancer you enter into the bondage of form. The mass of humanity does that, but the individual enters into the bondage of form in Pisces. That does seem to be what he is saying. So we have to watch that first incarnation. The individual enters the bondage of form in Pisces. And the bondage of form is the process of incarnation. So I am concluding that that first incarnation for an individual human being has a lot to do with the sign Pisces. So we have been talking about 6 potencies. There are various potencies to look at. Certainly we've had the 6 potencies of the 6 planets in relation to the later Mutable Cross, and they have been Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, the Moon/Vulcan, Earth, and Pluto. But now let's see, does he seem to mean any other potencies here? It is possible that we can be speaking of the entire Mutable Cross plus Venus and the Earth. Another 6 potencies are, okay, entered into Cancer, etc. So one way of looking at 6 potencies, one way of looking at 6 potencies is the 6 planets which are the orthodox and esoteric rulers of the Mutable Cross. The other way is the 4 signs of the Mutable Cross and Earth and Venus. And that may be what he is discussing here. They produce release from the bondage of form. Okay, that bears further examination. We have been considering, however, the factor of exaltation, and Venus definitely does seem to be involved. All right. We have reached the point where we will now end this discussion. This is the end of Esoteric Astrology Adventure number 57, and we have gone, maybe not very far, okay, up to 131. So we've gone from page 129 to 131. And we will take this up with Esoteric Astrology Adventure number 58. And for now, we will together do the great invocation together. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men, let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men, may Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, thank you for your participation and your study. And as I've been, I was thinking about this during the Great Invocation, it came to me. We're talking about, you have the six potencies which produce release from the bondage of form. Okay. I do believe that Pisces must be included among them, so we're looking at a six-fold list which is not entirely that of the planets. We have to include the Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, Venus, and the Earth. I believe those are the six potencies. So here I made this, one of the ways of looking at the six potencies is the six planets, which are the orthodox and esoteric rules, but the other way is the four signs of the Mutable Cross, Earth and Venus, and I think this is more likely the story of the release from bondage. Okay. Just had to add that. Maybe I'll mention it when we begin the next one. Okay, good. Then that's that for the moment, and hopefully all has worked out well. And we will see you in Esoteric Astrology Adventure number 58, beginning on page 131 and continuing the discussion of the constellation or sign Pisces. Okay, see you then.